Have you ever found yourself in a situation like this? When you first signed your employment contract, the salary written on the paperwork looked pretty high. You thought you were about to start earning a solid, stable amount of money every month. But after a few months on the job, you began to realize something strange. The salary written in the contract was one thing, but the amount you actually received in your hand was something completely different. Sometimes it was even much lower than what you had imagined when you first started the job. You pictured yourself working and selling your time for a high rate, but in the end, what you actually received was only a small portion of that pay. So what exactly happened? Why is there such a big gap like this? Is it because you did not fully understand the job? Or is it part of a system that was already designed this way, one that many people unknowingly fall into? In this video, we are going to break down the truth about why a job that supposedly pays $30 per hour on paper can end up leaving you with only $5. To make it easier to picture, let us begin with the story of Bobo. Number 1. The salary on paper, the imaginary salary. When Bobo went to the interview and heard the employer confirm a wage of $30 per hour, he felt incredibly excited. In his head, he quickly did the math. Working 8 hours a day meant $240 a day. If he worked steadily for a full month, he could bring home more than $5,000. Just seeing that number alone was enough for Bobo to start imagining a much more comfortable life. That is also the way most of us tend to think when we first get a job. We look at the number written on the contract and automatically assume that money belongs to us. But in reality, that is only the imaginary salary on paper. It is simply the starting number, not the final amount that actually ends up in Bobo's pocket. To make it easier to picture, imagine that Bobo owns a small sandwich shop. Every day the shop sells a lot of sandwiches, so the revenue looks very high. But revenue is not the same thing as profit. To know how much money the owner truly keeps, all kinds of expenses have to be deducted first. Bobo's $30 per hour works exactly the same way. It is like the initial revenue of a personal business called Bobo. The number looks very attractive, but that money does not fully belong to him yet. The danger of this imaginary number is that it often pushes Bobo to make bad decisions. For example, he might spend more freely or feel confident that he is already doing well financially. Then after working for a few months, he suddenly feels shocked when he looks at the actual balance in his bank account. The first cut that shrinks Bobo's salary is taxes and mandatory deductions. These include things like personal income tax, social security contributions, and health insurance. Depending on where Bobo lives and how much he earns, these deductions can take away about 20 to 30% of the total money he makes. The important thing is that this money is not deducted after Bobo receives his paycheck. It is usually taken right from the start, which means before the money ever reaches his hands, a portion of it has already disappeared. Imagine that 1 hour of Bobo's work equals 6 sandwiches. In theory, he sees all 6 sandwiches, but right before he takes them home, someone quietly removes 1 or 2 sandwiches. Taxes work exactly like that. They reduce the number on paper right from the first layer of protection. As a result, the $30 per hour on paper may actually become only around $21 to $24 per hour once the money reaches his bank account. This is the moment Bobo begins to realize something important. The salary the company tells him is just a number meant to be heard. The after-tax income is the number meant to live on. Once he understands that, Bobo becomes much more clear-headed, because he now knows that the salary written in a contract has never been the full story. Number 2. We are actually paying money just to be able to go to work. After losing a significant chunk of his income to the knife called taxes, Bobo thinks the money left in his account finally belongs completely to him. But not quite. This is where the real trick starts to reveal itself. In order to earn that after-tax money, Bobo has to operate his personal business, and running any business requires expenses. In other words, Bobo is actually spending money in return just to have the right to go to work every day. Take a look at the list of invisible bills that his job forces him to pay. The first one is transportation costs. Gasoline, parking fees, or maintenance for the vehicle that exists mainly to take Bobo from home to the office and back. If Bobo did not go to work, he would clearly save that amount of money every month. Next comes appearance costs. Bobo cannot show up to meet clients or sit in an office wearing pajamas or old worn-out clothes from home. Neat suits, leather shoes, handbags, or even skincare products because he spends long hours sitting in air conditioning. All of these things are essentially required accessories to maintain a professional image at work. And it does not stop there. Because going to work leaves Bobo short on time, he often falls into the trap of more expensive services. Instead of cooking a $5 meal at home, he spends $15 on a rushed lunch outside. Instead of slowly making a cup of tea, he spends $5 every day on coffee just to stay alert. Sometimes, because most of his valuable time is spent at the office, Bobo even has to hire someone to clean the house or buy prepared food. By the time he gets home, he barely has the energy left to step into the kitchen. All of these expenses, transportation, clothes, eating out, and convenience services, are essentially the investment capital Bobo must spend every day in order to keep his job going. If we take the after-tax income and subtract all the costs required just to maintain his ability to work, the number that remains is the money that truly belongs to Bobo. At this point, the shiny $30 per hour from the beginning may have already fallen to only about $10 to $15 per hour. And that is when Bobo realizes something surprising. He is not only selling his time, he is also spending his own money just to maintain the title of being employed. Number 3. The costs of recovering physical and mental health. But the list of investment costs Bobo has to pay just to be able to go to work does not stop at gasoline or lunch. There is another type of expense that is much quieter, yet digs even deeper into his wallet. That is the cost of recovery. After a long and stressful day at the office, dealing with pressure from bosses, clients, and endless dry spreadsheets, Bobo cannot simply shut down his computer and go straight to sleep. He needs time to recover both physically and mentally so he can step back into the same cycle the next day. If we look closely at the expenses Bobo often tells himself are just ways to treat himself, we realize they are actually attempts to heal the stress caused by work. These are nights out drinking with coworkers to blow off steam, expensive restaurant meals because Bobo feels he deserves it after a hard day, or short trips taken simply to escape the pressure of everyday life. Sometimes sitting in air conditioning all day leaves his body stiff, so he spends extra money on a gym membership to ease his back pain or buys supplements just to help himself stay alert. All of these expenses, from entertainment and stress relief meals to healthcare, are essentially maintenance costs for the machine called Bobo. If it were not for the pressure from that $30 per hour job, would Bobo really need to spend so much money just to find peace of mind again? This is the psychological trap. Bobo uses his time to earn money, and then uses that same money to buy back the comfort that the job has taken away. When he adds these recovery expenses to the list of work-related costs, Bobo realizes that his real income shrinks even further. Not only is he paying money just to be able to go to work, he is also paying an extremely expensive psychological tax. At this point, the $30 on paper feels more distant and more illusory than ever because most of the money he earns is simply being used to keep Bobo from burning out before the next paycheck arrives. Number 4. Real time and the actual wage we receive. Up to this point, Bobo has already seen his salary gradually shrink because of taxes, because of the costs required just to be able to go to work, and because of the money he has to spend to recover his physical and mental energy after work. But there is still one more factor. If he does not include it in the calculation, Bobo will continue to misunderstand the true value of his job. That factor is the actual time the job takes from his life. Normally, Bobo believes he only sells 8 hours a day to the company in exchange for $30 per hour. But if he looks closely at his daily schedule, the story changes. In order to begin those 8 hours at the office, Bobo needs at least 1 hour in the morning to prepare his clothes, fix his hair, and travel through crowded streets. After work, he spends another hour dragging his tired body from the office back home. On top of that, there is 1 hour of lunch break. Even though this hour is unpaid, Bobo is still essentially confined to the workplace and cannot truly use that time freely for his own life. So in order to receive payment for 8 hours on paper, Bobo is actually spending 11 or even 12 hours of his life every day on that job. At this point, Bobo realizes he has to recalculate the true value of this job so he will no longer be fooled by the numbers written on paper. To see the most realistic picture, he needs to take the final amount of money left after taxes, then continue subtracting all the operating costs, such as gasoline, restaurant lunches, clothing, skincare products, and even the money spent on psychological healing. After that, instead of dividing the remaining money by 8 hours like the contract suggests, Bobo divides it by the full 12 hours of life he actually gives up every day, including preparation and commuting time. In other words, The real hourly wage equals the after-tax income minus the cost of going to work minus the cost of recovery, and then that result is divided by the total real time spent, which is 12 hours. And the result is shocking. The $30 per hour written on the contract now turns out to be only about $5 to $8 per hour in reality. This is the amount that the personal business called Bobo truly earns after subtracting all operating costs and the depreciation of his time. Once Bobo understands this, he realizes he was never earning as much as he originally believed. He has been running a business that looks shiny on the outside, but in reality it is operating at a loss, paid for with his own time and health. When he looks at that $5 real hourly income, Bobo realizes he has been selling the most valuable hours of his life for a price that is far too cheap. Suddenly, all the exhausting effort he has been putting in starts to feel meaningless, unless he changes the way he thinks about the true value of his time. Number 5. The raise and bonus trap. After seeing that his real income is only a few dollars per hour, Bobo thinks, then I just need to work harder and get a raise. That will fix everything. But this is where another trap appears. The raise and bonus trap. When Bobo's salary increases from $30 to $40 per hour, he feels successful and begins spending more freely. But in reality, when income increases, responsibility and pressure increase as well. To justify the higher salary, Bobo must work overtime, attend more meetings, and deal with even greater stress. As a result, the operating costs of his life also rise. He spends more money on restaurant meals because he has even less time to cook. He spends more on entertainment to relieve stress. And sometimes he spends more on medicine because his health starts declining. Even worse, raises often come with the trap of lifestyle inflation. When Bobo sees his salary grow, he upgrades his lifestyle. A nicer car, more expensive clothes, things that match his new status. So even though the income on his paycheck increases, the cost of maintaining his life grows even faster. When Bobo calculates his real hourly income again, the money left after all expenses divided by the total hours he gives to work, he may discover something surprising. His real hourly income has barely changed. Sometimes it is even lower. This trap pushes Bobo into an endless loop. He works harder to earn more money, then spends that money supporting a more expensive lifestyle just to cope with exhaustion. Money increases on paper, but freedom and peace quietly disappear. At this point, Bobo needs clarity. A raise only truly matters if it increases the real profit he earns for every hour of life he trades away. If the new salary only looks impressive on paper but secretly steals his personal time and peace of mind, then it is not a financial upgrade at all. It is simply a bad trade, where Bobo exchanges the most valuable asset of his life for the illusion of wealth. Solution. The truth is simple. If you want a better life, it is not enough to earn more money. You also have to keep more of what you earn. To do that, instead of looking only at the price of something, you should look at how many hours of your life you have to trade to own it. Instead of asking, how much does this phone cost? Bobo should ask, how many hours of my real wage will it take to buy it? If Bobo's real hourly pay, after taxes and expenses, is only $5, then a phone that costs $1,000 equals 200 hours of work. That is almost an entire month of Bobo pushing through office stress, traffic, and exhaustion just to afford one item. When Bobo starts converting everyday spending into hours of life, he becomes much more careful with every financial decision. At the same time, Bobo needs strategies that help him keep more money and protect his personal time. First, he should try to reduce the operating costs of going to work. Instead of automatically paying high gas and parking costs, he could optimize his commute, share rides, or work remotely when possible. By cutting these hidden expenses, the amount of real money left in Bobo's pocket increases without needing any raise from the company. Preparing food at home is another powerful way to protect his money. Restaurant meals feel convenient, but when repeated every day, they slowly drain Bobo's budget. By bringing lunch from home, he can avoid impulsive spending that often happens when he is tired or in a hurry. It is a small habit change, but it can significantly improve his real monthly income. Bobo should also cut back on spending that only exists to soothe stress. Many times he spends money just to buy temporary comfort after a difficult workday. Drinking nights, impulse shopping, or expensive reward meals slowly eat away at the money he earned with his time and energy. Reducing these habits helps Bobo respect the true value of his effort. Finally, Bobo needs to think carefully before accepting raises or new responsibilities. More money is not always better. If a new position brings longer working hours, greater pressure, less personal time, and even more expenses, then that higher salary may not actually be an improvement. Before this video ends, there is one important idea to remember. The real value of a job is not the salary written on paper. It is the money that remains after you have traded away your time, energy, and quality of life. Every expense is really a piece of your life that has been exchanged for money. If you want more freedom, the key is not only earning more, but keeping more and refusing to sell your time too cheaply.